5:30 and, okay, can you hear me? It's 5:30. I think we have some public comments. And public comments? Okay.
Good evening, Dr. Paluski and board. As you all know, I'm a member of the Amboy community, and while I'm not necessarily opposed to the purchase of that piece of property, it is a large sum of money for a small wedge of land, and unless we have, or the board or the district has a concrete plan for what's going to be used for that, it's just going to continue to create problems in the neighborhood. Ever since the school was built and the traffic was set up through there, it's been better since the gate was opened this spring, but it still backs up traffic through the neighborhood, and that road that runs behind the wedge between the school and the wedge is a one-way road, and people don't like to treat it as a one-way road, and so they'll cut through that lot to get to the school. And so, you know, it's a lot of money for a little wedge of land, and so if you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to go drive by. It sits right in front of the school, and you'll know exactly what it is. It used to be a detail shop several years ago, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
We're going to call the meeting to order, and may we have the roll call, please?
Ms. Temple.
Here.
Dr. Redda.
Here.
Ms. Wonka. Mr. Zakresti.
Here.
Ms. Pearson West.
Present.
Ms. Williams.
Present.
Mr. Steele.
Thank you.
Madam President, members of the board, before we get started, I was wondering if we could just have a quick moment of silence. We lost one of our students at Indian Hills Elementary School in a very tragic event over the weekend, and I just want to remember that family that's going through a very difficult time. We never want to lose one of our own, and if you could remember them for just a second, I would appreciate it. Thank you. Madam President, members of our board, our first information item is 3.1, which is our Virtual Learning Academy Program 2.0. So I'll have my colleagues, Mrs. Leanne Alexander, Executive Director of Special Education Services, and Dr. Brooke Reynolds, who's our district testing coordinator, as well as our Virtual Academy Director. We have a presentation that we would like to present to you, an overview.
Oh, you have, I think you gotta use the clicker up here. Hit the big X, yeah.
It's okay. It's okay. Or maybe if you could either download it or just increase the font.
board. Thank you all for having us here this evening. We're going to discuss the Virtual Learning Academy Program 2.0. Clicker's not working. Can you click manually? Okay. The purpose of our program this evening is to update you on the Virtual Learning Academy Program 2.0 implementation plan. We would also like to gain board approval for the cost of using an outsourced vendor. Just to give you a little information on our instructional delivery, we will be using an Arkansas licensed teachers and curriculum provided by Pearson, which is one of the DESE approved providers for giving K-12 students virtual instruction. The Pearson teachers will interact with students during synchronous live instruction and also using asynchronous instruction with recorded videos. If a student needs to, they may also contact their Pearson teacher for additional one-on-one help when they need that assistance. Students will be expected to complete lessons and learning tasks assigned to them by their Pearson teachers. And the platform that they will use is called Pearson Connects. It's an educational management system, which is a combination of a learning management system and a content management system. And that platform is where the students will get their live instruction. They will view those video recordings. They can have access to lessons, and that's where they're turning their assignments. A little bit different than what we did this school year, adjustments, so it's going to differ a little bit, and we're going to make sure the students understand that. Their schedules can be more personalized to fit their needs, and they'll still be registered to their home school. So this is not something we're getting an LEA for just this one. They'll still be a part of whatever home school they've been assigned to. Students are going to be able to complete their work at their own pace. But they're going to keep on track because I'm going to be monitoring them regularly to make sure they're turning their lessons and are engaged in the learning. One thing though, if there's a career and technical education class for students grades 9 through 12, if that particular class or program is not offered by Pearson, that's going to be the one exception. We're going to let them attend class for that one of the career and technical education classes. Another thing, if students would like to participate in a AAA sanctioned activity from the Arkansas Activities Association, examples, athletics, band, those types of things, if that class or program is sanctioned by the AAA, they'll be able to attend class as well, or attend that program and attend the activities. Both of those last bullet points, though, just note that if students want to participate or come to school for those, they will need to provide their own transportation. Okay, so just so you have an idea of what a day would look like for an elementary student, you can see we're going to start the day out at 8 o'clock, and every day they're going to prepare themselves by checking their email, looking at their planners, those types of things. And again, everything's going to look a little different depending on what the student is doing for the day, but they could have maybe a synchronous session, and it's a homeroom huddle. And the next slide, I'll talk about that in just a moment, but homeroom huddle is a place for them to get together with their teachers and peers and have a kind of a social, emotional lesson going on at that point. And then at 9 o'clock every day, they could have a brain break where they may get away from the computer, get a snack, kind of reset for the rest of the day. 9:30, they may do some kind of a language art lesson on their own. And then at 10:45, they're going to hop on and be able to do a synchronous lesson. And that piece right there is going to satisfy our K-12 science of reading component that's required by the state. So that synchronous lesson every day is going to satisfy that. And then, of course, they'll have their lunch break. After lunch, they may have another live lesson, or they may work independently doing some things in language arts or math. Next slide, please. The rest of the day, finishing it out. Again, it's kind of an independent work. They may be working on science or social studies in the afternoon. Again, taking a small break. They could go outside. This would be their unsupervised recess, so to speak. And then, unsupervised by us, not on their own with their house. Unsupervised by personnel. Then they may work on a math lesson. At the end of the day, that's when they would kind of get together, see what they're missing, and turn in any outstanding work. So that would end today at 3 o'clock. And again, down here at the bottom, if you're looking at those schedules, homeroom includes something they'll get together and work with their social emotional activities, build with their peers, their own age, that sort of thing. Dish is another piece that could be an option. That's when they may drop in informally and speak to their teacher as needed if they have a dish session. Moving on to what a secondary. Again, now this one's going to be, it's a broad spectrum because of the amount of electives that the kids can select. So again, starting their day at 8 o'clock, They're gonna kind of get their day set. They're gonna read emails, look at their feedback from the teachers from the day before, and kind of see what needs to be on their agenda for the day. Then independently, they may complete some kind of a lesson, either a core subject or an elective. They also have their breaks built in to get a snack, relax, whatever. Then again, at 9:30, we're gonna go and do some independent work on those lessons. 10:45, that's when they may hop on and do some live lessons, and their peers of their age group would be there, depending on what day it is, what subject is taught. And again, then they'll take their lunch break. Noon, they're gonna come back in and start working on some independent work and working on those lessons they need to get done. The rest of the afternoon, again, they may hop on at 12:30, do some live lessons with their teachers, interact with their peers, take a break. Then they may schedule some independent help. If I need some extra help in a core subject or elective, I may schedule that time with that Pearson teacher. And again, at the end of the day, I'm going to take some time, look over what I need to turn in, wrap up, and turn in any work that I may be working on for that day. A little bit about the technology piece. Again, I mentioned before, Pearson Connexus is the primary management system for our virtual learning. It's their platform that they use, and they can do their lessons there, get some video recordings, those types of things. The education management system is the foundation. That's where they have all their classes, things. It's 24 hours. So, you know, we all know, and I know, I have a high school student. They may want to hang out for a little bit during the day and say, I'm better at night. I'm going to get on and do my independent lessons in the evening. So having this 24-hour period allows them to work when they are best for them. If they're not quite awake at 8 o'clock, maybe I'm going to get on at 8 o'clock at night because that's better for me as, like I said, a high school student. Live lesson is a trademark, so think of that as a Zoom, Google Meet. That's their trademark name for their one-on-one, and it's a secure connection so that it doesn't have to worry about any outsiders getting on or anything like that. And they will meet with their teachers, and that's how they can do their group lessons, or they may have their independent lessons through that live lesson. And again, it allows them to connect synchronously, or if the student cannot attend the live session, maybe they've got something going on, a doctor's appointment, that session is recorded and they can go back and access it at a later time and watch it. And then it also, even if they attend the live lesson, maybe I want to go back and review how to do that algebra problem, I could go back and watch that recorded lesson as many times as I need to get that concept. Again, the live lesson provides time for that real-time instruction, one-on-one. You have maybe some small groups with your peers to interact and get you still connected with students. We will continue to provide students with that Chromebook for virtual if they need that. They will use it for those classwork, live meetings, and also for testing. The student's home location, so if I'm a student at Crestwood Elementary or Meadow Park, I'll get that Chromebook from that because I'm still a student at that school. Again, district provided hotspots. We're going to be able to provide any families that need internet access that want to do virtual. We'll provide them. We'll continue, as we've done this year, providing them with the hotspot. And the North Little Rock IT department, Mr. Staggers, has set up a help desk for virtual students. We did it last year. We're going to continue using that this year. And if you'd like to look, there's a flow chart that can show you what his flow process is if students need help with technology. And I think Ms. Alexander, this is you, student support, so I will hop over to the computer.
So with the Virtual Academy, we are going to use our school counselors to do wellness checks every day. So they'll check in, and then if they decide they need that extended help for mental health piece, we will refer them to one of our contracted mental health providers. Am I on the wrong one? No, I'm on the right one. Yep. Okay. Okay. And then if the counselors that we use Strive, The Point, Life Strategies, and Pat Center. We have MOUs with all of them, and so our counselors will make referrals. And it's going to be really important to do that since our students aren't on campus for our counselors to be a part of that. Also, Pearson provides an academic program manager, and that person's going to work directly with Brooke. They're going to look at students, can they attend, meet our criteria. We're going to have just like a program manager from them and then a program manager with Brooke. If a student needs additional support, the Virtual Academy director will schedule a time with the Pearson teacher. And I want to stress to y'all that these are Arkansas licensed teachers, so that's really good for us. We know they're meeting our standards. And then the student will receive individual assistance. And then at the end of the 9 weeks, if a student is below a C average, and I'm gonna stress to you 9 weeks, that's the only time we can have a conference and look at, do these students need to go back face-to-face, or what do we need to do to support them to stay in the virtual program? Okay, and then the special populations, virtual students that have dyslexia services, they will continue to receive those dyslexia services through our dyslexia specialists. They'll do that through synchronous instruction. Same with our GT students. Our program standards will be met through the Pearson program, but we will provide any additional support from our GT program if they need additional supports. For special education, we are going to meet as a team. Someone from our department will meet with Pearson and Brooke to determine if we can meet their needs for the IEP. If they cannot meet those virtually, then we will ask them to come back face-to-face. A lot of the students for IDEA regulations will be more your high-resource students, your students that are in inclusion classes, but our self-contained students, we are going to still encourage those to come back face-to-face. And then the bottom bullet point is about our ELL learners. If a student has an LPAC or an IEP, we are going to continue to follow everything in those plans and follow state and federal regulations and guidelines.
The next slide discusses a little bit about what the parent or guardian will be doing within the virtual situation here. So basically, they're an observer, and Pearson refers to them as a caretaker, but that's just their term. It is our parent or guardian. And in that role, they'll be able to view what the student's doing. They will have a log into the platform, and they can help monitor and support the student as needed. They can view announcements, read to-do lists, check the calendar, what the teacher is wanting them to do for the day. They may also view the student's grades and gradebook activity when they log into the Connexus platform. And it's also a good idea for that caretaker just to review all the lessons, look at the teacher feedback, and if they need to, they can communicate with the teacher via email, and Pearson encourages them to do daily emails to them. I'm going to discuss this in depth later on, but what Pearson uses is called Family 411. It's a resource center, and it shows tutorials and how-to guides, things that how to do things on their platform. Resources for student and families. Again, this is about that 411 I spoke about. A designated Pearson administrator will work directly with us to host a family session so they can understand what's expected of them, what the platform looks like. We're going to do that in July and August prior to the launch of school starting. And again, that Pearson 411 provides tools with students so they can begin successfully using that Connexus program. They have things like recorded orientations, interactive tutorials, digital learning tips so they can have success in their program. There is a Getting Started section in that Family 411. It has several documents and videos, including a quick start guide, orientation, tutorials, those types of things. So they have an entire piece inside of their things for family support besides us being there to support them. And students are going to be required to complete a student orientation with Pearson. So once they sign up and get going, there'll be that required orientation they'll do with Pearson. Teacher support, again, the Virtual Academy Director will collaborate with Pearson, any support needed by their teachers. So if something's going on with a student, I'll work with their teachers to make sure the student's successful. Like Ms. Alexander mentioned before, if there's some supports that Pearson is not being able to provide on our special populations, then we'll make sure that we collaborate and fulfill those needs. Pearson provides their teachers with preparation throughout the day to be able to be successful of our students that are enrolled in the program. And I will be consulting with their certified teachers to ensure that the quality that they're providing aligns with all of our Arkansas state standards and everything is met. District support. So as a district, we have Title I funds available to ensure that everyone has an equitable access to this digital learning program. Anybody that may be in poverty, homeless, those types of things, we can use those funds to help support them. We're going to continue the weekly food pickup that we had last year. I feel they were able to come pick up boxes of food, so that's still going to be available to them. We may support using Ms. Riggins, our social worker, if they need additional food and clothing, so they still will be able to receive these supports. The students do have to report on campus for testing. Last year they did it. They all came on campus last year for testing. That's going to be the same situation. NWEA allowed us to do the 310 assessments at home. And so if they're going to allow that again this year, we will continue doing those. Excuse me, it was K10. The K2 has to come to school in the spring. We'll continue being able to do those assessments at home, but anything else like our high standards, the reporting test, the ELPA, DLM, ACT Aspire, ACT, they do have to come on campus for that. Depending on the needs and things will determine that location as to where they'll come in and do those testing. Being the testing coordinator as well, I can help make sure that gets facilitated properly. So. Again, we can communicate those testing dates via our social media sites. We have a virtual academy website. We have an email and phone system that goes out to make sure everyone knows those test dates. If the family isn't able to bring the students to school for testing, we will provide bus transportation for testing, as we did this spring. If a student was able to come, we did help run bus routes to make sure they got to testing. More digital supports. We will monitor the effectiveness of this program in several ways. I said our K10 students will participate in the NWEA MAP growth, so that way we can check growth as we do with our in-person students. We will use this. I will share it with the Pearson teachers so they can help their planning and instruction. And we can also provide, kind of look at the growth and see how our virtual students are doing compared with their in-house peers. And we also have the national norms provided by NWEA that we can do a comparison with that as well. We're going to look at the K-12 interim and 9 weeks grades, looking at student engagement to see if they're being successful and determine if this is the right spot for them. I'm going to be able to log into a dashboard at any time to monitor progress. I can look at each student and see if they've been turning in their work, if they're on track, those types of things. And that way we can keep on top of things and not let a student fall behind and get stuck somewhere they don't need to be. Again, as Ms. Alexander said, we will have an academic program manager that will work directly with me. We have one person assigned to our district, and we can talk about the effectiveness of the program. After each grading period, I'm going to visit with the parents and find out if this is working for them, any improvements we can make, and that way we can determine if we need to make any adjustments in our program. Policies for virtual students. Virtual students will follow the same types of policies as far as attendance, what the handbook says, discipline and grading policies. The reason why we have to have a waiver for attendance is because they're not going to be physically in a building. So it's not going to be the same kind of attendance as what we see. You show up, I mark you present. The attendance is going to be, and the reason why we have the waiver is going to be based on their engagement within the platform. So weekly, I'll determine, if they've engaged and all that, they can be marked present, and that's why we have to have a waiver for the attendance. But it's the same policy. If they miss X number of days, just like in the student handbook, the support comes in there in the process of you've missed too many days of school. So that's what that's meant. Yeah, that's okay. All right, and our implementation plan. Again, we talked about that program manager will work directly with me to make sure that we have a solid implementation program. There's going to be different people, the implementation specialist will have a technical account manager corresponding with us and make sure, and again, people from North Little Rock School District to make everything goes smoothly. Our ESL students, our SPED students, make sure everything is set up and aligned correctly. Once we have approval and we sign a contract with them, their goal is 5 days of execution once they have that statement of work to start working on this and get delivery. So once everything is signed and approved, they say it takes about 5 days to get them up and running. And again, same thing, once we create the domain, we'll have a specific URL for our school district within 5 days. And then there is training for North Little Rock School District administrators to make sure we're all know how to use the platform and make sure we're able to understand it and what they've got going on with their Connexus platform. A little bit of a timeline for you all. So today, we are presenting you information about the vendor and let you know about the cost. Next Thursday, July 1st, we're going to ask for final board approval of the vendor. Beginning on July 12th through the 26th, we're going to start with some informal meetings with parents. That would be with me just to make sure they understand, like I'm telling you all what the program's about, making sure they understand the workings of what Pearson is and what it means to be a virtual student this school year. On July 26th, that's going to be the final day for families to enroll or withdraw in virtual. That way we can do our planning, the school buildings can do their planning, and we're not just last minute saying, oh, this kid's going to be virtual or this one's going to be in the building. We're going to have that cutoff date. In August, we will have that parent-student orientation with Pearson and with our school district. That way they can pick up their devices and be prepared to go for the first day of school, which is August 16th. Just kind of a caveat down there at the bottom, we're gonna use the curriculum with Pearson. We'd like to for this school year, using a combination of synchronous and asynchronous instruction. Moving forward, we'd like to, in the coming school years, transition to using our teachers, being virtual teachers, using the Pearson curriculum. And that way it just gives us more time to plan, train, recruit, I don't know if recruit's the word I want to use, recruit teachers that want to be virtual teachers, and that's what they want to do, and more training for them as well. Right now, we've had virtual registration going on for a couple of months. So our final number, of course, we have more high school students, middle school and elementary. So the numbers there, a total of 191, which we've updated. The registration is still open, and we're going to start kind of when these meetings happen, see if anyone else would like to register. So we may have some more join in after that. And then here's our big cost number. That's what everyone wants to see. So per student, so with 191 students, you can see our cost. There is a required training, and up to 15 people may attend, and that's $400. That's something we have to do for a total cost of $649,609. Okay, and we're ready for questions.
Madam President? I have some are questions and some it's just clarification.
Yeah.
The first one is on special ed. Do they have a different schedule than everybody else, or is it the same schedule?
It's gonna be the same schedule, but all of their schedules are different. So they're gonna personalize. So a special ed student's schedule may look a little different, but all the students' schedules are different. There's no one just set schedule for everyone.
Gotcha. All the teachers, so all of our teachers will be in classroom only.
Correct.
They won't be doing virtual at all.
Not all.
Not at all.
Great. But, because that's what I kind of thought we were going to do before, but they end up having to do both. So ours will be just strictly in class. But we are looking at, in the future, maybe some of ours becoming
Yes.
the virtual. Okay. That was clarity. And the last one was, I know that we're going to have a meeting with the parents if they get below a C, but what about if there's no growth on the NWE? Is that going to make a difference as well? You know, if they're not.
Well, there's probably some, that's not gonna make them come back in the building unless it's something that's because some of our in-person students don't have growth as well. So that's not necessarily an indicator to come back in the building. It's just if they're failing, we don't wanna have failing situations. And if they're not having growth, that'd be something I would visit with the Pearson teachers and share that information with them and saying, this is some deficits, because NWA, you can bullet down into some real detailed things and say, they're not growing. Why are we not growing? Here's the information that our data shows they're not growing. And just like if we do with in-person students, we talk to those teachers and say, this is what we need to do to have them grow. But it wouldn't automatically mean they'd come back in the building.
No, but you'll have a conference with them just like
say
you would.
we're not experiencing any growth with our NWA, and that's what, they need to know that.
That's it. Thank you.
Oh, it's on him. I had 9 questions to ask, but Dr. Poloski answered all of those questions for the board, really. And he'll probably give you all a copy too, so you all will be on the same page when you answer, the questions. But I want to thank you, Dr. Poloski, for that.
Yes, ma'am.
The reason I send the questions in early, we don't need to prolong meetings where you all can have an opportunity to look at them, and then we can adjust it from that standpoint. And
Yes,
thank you for your presentation. But it is in red, and but he did answer the questions for me, and thank you.
Look,
For your time.
he already gave us a
All
copy.
right.
We have our copy.
All right.
All right. Try to do my homework for you,
Yeah,
Ms. Warren.
okay, thank you.
I didn't send my questions in, and I do have a few, but I'll try to be quick. Okay. First, will they answer to you? Meaning, or will they basically operate independently? If there are issues, are there ways for us to drill down into that and get those things fixed?
Yeah, I've spoken with some other school districts that use Pearson, and that was my question as well. And the virtual directors of those school districts kind of shared with me how they work with that program manager if there's issues to resolve those. So yes, that would be one of those kind of things where, now they would not be, obviously they're not North Little Rock School District employees, but it'd be one of
Right.
those things we'd work together to solve any
But
problems we
you've talked with other districts, and they've had positive things to say in
Yes,
that regard.
but
Okay.
the ones I've talked to in Arkansas, that had some, I asked some specific questions like that, because that was something I was concerned with too, and she said we got everything solved, and it always, she said she got her way, is what her words were.
Well, that's what I'm looking
Yeah.
for. I'm looking for a partner, but I want to make sure we can get those
Right.
things fixed.
Sure.
You said students would work at their own pace. Does that mean on a daily basis or through the semester? Is this going to kind of look like, I don't know, drawing a comparison to like Summit, where
Right,
students
right,
did, and I'm not looking at negatively
Right.
particularly. I'm just curious about how that will work, how we'll keep kids on task, I should say.
Well, it's a weekly basis. So
Okay.
there's more of a weekly check, so that way we don't get into a problem where we're all of a sudden at the end of the semester and I haven't turned any work in. That's my job, is to look at that stuff weekly and say, oh, this person's behind, making that contact, working it out, and see, why haven't you turned this in, and being with them. Because again, if they're not doing well at the end of the 9 weeks, we're gonna have that conference, say, or even at interim. And if we're zeros, we hadn't turned anything in, we need to have that conversation and figure out what's going on, so it won't prolong
Okay.
one of those things.
But just to be clear, to our parents, this is school. So,
Right.
the expectation is this is instruction every day.
Right.
That's why we want to have direct synchronous instruction. But yes, Brooke will be monitoring, Dr. Rounds will be monitoring and working with those teachers. We just don't want to make sure any students fall.
And so you said there will be synchronous, the kids will have an option of attending class synchronously where the teacher's teaching live, or they can view that later. And I guess that can be the next, it doesn't have to necessarily be that day, as long as they're not falling too far behind and
Right.
you have those concerns. So back to the attendance thing. Will students be required to be logged in a certain amount of time, show a certain amount of activity, or just this kid logged in this day, they're present?
It's not about just logging in, it's also about completion
Okay,
of work.
okay,
So it's like, again, that's why we're having the attendance waiver. It's more about the student engagement versus I've just showed up and shown my face, I'm gonna get marked present. It's about that accountability, which I like,
right.
because it's not just
Well,
I'm showing up,
for
I'm
your
doing
sake,
the work.
I highly recommend we have some specific
Sure.
criteria,
Yeah, absolutely.
because you know
Oh, yes,
that can go down the rabbit hole
yes,
real
yes,
fast.
yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
If I could jump in there 1 second, Dr. Rounds, could you explain to the board and to Mr. Zakreski's question, there is the parents have to sign off on what the expectations are. You want to touch a little bit on that, because I think that will go into a little bit even more detail.
Sure. We've developed a parent contract. Is that what you want me to? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Making sure I'm on the right page. We developed a parent contract. Several committee members from the district office. I want to look at a few more items on it, but it's about that accountability of I've got to be responsible. I'm a independent worker. I'm going to know I've got lessons to turn in every single day. I can focus and keep on track, knowing that may not have someone saying, hey, don't forget to turn your lesson in. But we developed a parent contract that we're going to present to people beforehand. Just, again, being transparent and saying, if this is not for you, then let's go back in the building. But if this is for you, great, let's do it. And so we've redeveloped that, and we're going to make sure they understand it.
okay, so you said if North Little Rock offers classes, let's say stagecraft, theater, dance, those types of things, those virtual kids will be able to come to
That's
class
not
on.
those are not AAA sanctioned.
So it's only the AAA sanctioned classes?
Or the 9-12 CTE classes.
Correct.
Okay, so it's just the AAA and non, okay,
And to clarify about that, there are career and tech classes offered by Pearson.
okay,
They do have them. But if there's a certain program, like the medical professions program or one of those, that Pearson obviously cannot offer because it's so much hands-on, then we will allow them to come on campus for that. But there are certain programs that it's just one of those things we have to kind of draw a line at some point. So we've decided that AAA is the line. So if there's a class they're really interested in being in a program, then they would probably want to go ahead and be in person.
okay, that makes sense.
There's just got to be some kind of a dividing point.
Do they offer, will they offer regular classes, AP classes, all types of levelized learning? That'll all be
They do.
available?
They have AP classes, a nice catalog of AP classes, honestly, and they do help for honors classes. So if a student doesn't want to go to AP, but they're want to push themselves with it, they do have that middle level of honors classes
Excellent.
as well.
Excellent, okay. I think that's just about it. Staffing, do we feel like, I don't want to be letting teachers go because we've got fewer kids in the building. Where do we feel we are on staffing? Do we feel we're going to be able to keep all our teachers and have them properly engaged with the kids that are going to be in the building?
So in the big picture, I'm still trying to get my hands on staffing around the whole district. But I think this is a great opportunity if we do have some extra staffing, and this is what I've directed schools, because we know what the research says. If we can use those resources to even lower class sizes a little bit more, that's going to make a tremendous impact on instruction. And I think as we learn through the course of the year, which is why our model is to go outsource that, one, because of a scheduling issue. So for an example, if we only have 4 third graders across the district that want virtual, that's tough to allocate 1 FTE to 3 students. Therefore, that teacher's gonna have to teach virtual and blended, which is what we wanna stay away from. What we've heard from teachers when I spoke to them or from principals is we're gonna burn teachers out.
Right.
And so we believe by going with this model for years is gonna allow us planning with the idea of having a clear job description and a pool of candidates that want to teach virtually, and then let that drive, enrollment drive that as we go
Okay,
forward.
good. Well, the per student cost is less than what we receive in foundation money, so that gives us some money maybe to help go toward those smaller classrooms, to help close some of the gaps we're going to see with virtual. I'm not telling you something you don't already know, but that's great. It's great that it doesn't cost more, because that would be a challenge. I think that's about all I have to ask. I appreciate all your work on this. I'm going to ask that we not let that calendar slip, because I know these is going to be scheduling for these kids in high school is going to be a huge challenge for these counselors and getting ready for the year. But I like the calendar. It's aggressive, and thank you for all your work.
Sure, thank you.
I just-
Dr. Reynolds,
Yes, ma'am.
you are the Virtual Academy Director. Okay. Thank you all for answering my questions I had, but another important question. Now, I noticed, I was looking for that sheet again where you had the number of high school, the number, oh, here it is.
I can go back to
Will you be, I got it.
Okay.
Oh, you're gonna show it to them also. How can you, that was a question I did ask, but you say you're gonna work with, and I'm gonna let you tell me how you by yourself is gonna deal with these 191 students being accountable for attendance. The 3 things is attendance, the conferences, and all of that. I know we're talking about the Pearson company. I do know you say you're gonna train administrators, and you answered that question for me. But what kind of support are you getting to make this program successful with this 191 students that you have to make? Who's making sure that they come in? What kind of accountability does the company have to making sure that they're coming to school, to making sure that you're doing the things that you mentioned? That's what I'm saying to you.
Well, again, like they're going to provide us with a program manager that I will work with, and
Okay.
within their platform, and I'm not going to be the only person trained. There'll be some other people that'll be trained to know how to look at things, to make sure, again, on a weekly basis, that those students are turning their work in and doing things like that. So that program manager provided by Pearson is our liaison, and they will help us look at those kind of things and understand it, especially starting out and making sure we know that the students are engaged, they're turning their work, as you're coming to school and doing what they need to do to be successful.
So who, specifically, tell me, who's your help again?
Well, Leanne is going to be one of the big helps within our district. We're going to need some help from the school counselors with the scheduling, and the school counselors will also have to help with that weekly check-in for that social emotional piece there. But her staff, again, with the special ed, will work closely with Ms. Touchstone for the ELs, Ms. Curlin for the GT students, and we'll have the support from those departments to make sure that we do everything correctly.
Okay, and you mentioned too in your report that every 6 weeks there would be a determining factor of whether children can go back to face-to-face if they're not doing
At the end of the 9 weeks.
Right. And the other thing that when you talking to parents, you did my report real good, but I'm going to say to you, these are key things that parents that you can embed in their hearts, that this is accountability. If we're going to pay out this kind of money at the board, we need to see some kind of accountability of how successful the program is.
Okay.
And if teachers are not functioning, and I think Dr. Peluska probably will have us getting a report on this.
Yes.
You know how well it's going.
Sure.
But I just wanted to make sure that you can openly say to us that you will not be overworked with 191 students. I mean, you need to tell the truth, because you can sit there and say, yes, ma'am, Ms. Williams, I can do it, and then it doesn't, and the ball will fall back on you
It will.
as the virtual academy person. So please be open and honest.
I will.
I got the prices here of what we're paying for, how much money that is being spent, and I want you, as a director, working with the company. I'm holding you accountable. So that's what I'm asking for.
Sure. I feel very comfortable asking for help. I realized last year that it was not a one-man show, because it was, I'll be honest, it was tough. Last August, it was tough. And I asked for help, and I received help. And I'm not ashamed to ask for help. I have no problem. I know that I can't do it all by myself. I know 100% I can't. I don't have some of the skills. I don't know special ed law. I'm gonna have to rely heavily on her department to help with that.
Well, this
So-
is what I'm saying.
Right.
Before implementation program, it may be other costs. Let's do the very best that we can if it's affordability with the district. Get all the help you need. I don't see us going into a program, we didn't go into a state, and then at the end of the year, we haven't moved anywhere, now we don't look successful in the program. That's all I'm saying. So when you all get back with Dr. Paluski, look over the program again, I'm just making sure you all have what you need so our children can be taught. Thank you.
And we'll come back probably in September, October with a data report, so the board and the public can see how implementation is going. And I don't want to leave the principals out, and these are still students attached to their schools, so they're responsible for meeting those needs as well.
Okay, thank you. I enjoyed your report.
Thank you, guys.
Staying up late at night reading it.
I just have one quick question for clarification purposes. On the technology Pearson platform slide, I have a note where you were talking about as far as a student will have 24 hours to basically complete all their work. Okay, at the end of that 24 hours, say like, for example, I don't log in and do my work on a Tuesday, but I can log in on Thursday and do, catch up and do everything at that time. Is it kind of like that, or how would the attendance work for that?
Right. Well, just to clarify, the platform is they can access it 24 hours.
Okay.
They don't just have 24 hours to turn it in. And kind of going back to what Mr. Zakreski was talking about, the attendance. It's about the engagement process. We do need a detailed plan, and as soon as we get trained on the platform and can see what that looks like, then we can detail that plan and say, okay, this is what, these are the rubric for attendance and those types of things. But you're right. So if they don't turn in something on Tuesday because maybe they had to go to work or they had doctor's appointments, they'll still have time to keep working. It's not a 24-hour piece that they have to turn it in. It's just at the end of that time when the lesson's due, and they may have all week to work on it.
Okay.
So it's not a quick turnaround, but they can have access to it 24 hours.
So they can pretty much work on it as they need to and then get
It's
it turned in.
flexible for their
Okay,
schedule.
okay, that's what I wanted to know, be clear on.
Which I really like. I think that
I do
helps
too.
the family a lot.
I do
Um,
too.
So, just more clarification on that. There's nothing that they have to do any particular day, like I saw some, that's
Those
just
are
an
samples.
option. Okay,
Samples only.
all right. So then, what if they decide to go back to school? Do we still pay them for the whole year, or do we get a refund for, how does that work?
Well, from what I understand, and you can correct me if I'm saying something wrong, we do pay for it for the whole year. So if they decide to go back at semester, then we've bought that seat. But the positive thing is, maybe we get a new student in, and they say, hey, I want to be virtual, or a student that's been in the building, then I have a seat for them.
Okay.
So it's one of those kind of things where those seats are interchangeable.
And it doesn't have to be the same grade level. Like
it
if
can-
an 11th grader leaves and a second grader wants to go in, we can use that for any grade level.
Okay,
So
so
it-
what if, and I don't know that anyone would do this, but they decide mid-year they want to go virtual, then do you pay for a whole year for them, or?
That's something I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to, when we look at the contract, we'll have to get a little more information. We can actually ask about that with our representative to find that out. That way, if we can purchase additional, if we need to purchase, if we full and we need to purchase, look, we need to ask about that. We
Okay.
don't have that. We knew she talked about the interchangeability, but we can ask if we need to purchase an additional seat mid-year. We're able to do that. I'll
Okay.
ask.
And then the only other thing that, when everybody was talking, I thought about the communication, the emails that go out and the texts and stuff that in the past, people haven't gotten it. So I don't know, what are we doing to make sure that we're keeping that updated? And that's probably not a question for you, but that's more like,
Well,
I don't want that to fall
I
through
don't
the
mind,
cracks
I don't
either.
mind addressing a piece of it. One thing that's been nice for me is most of the parents that are virtual are the ones that are really kind of interested in keeping up with it. And so I sent something out to everyone that has signed up, just to kind of, just to say, hey, listen, just to let you know, I've received your registration. And boy, I didn't get any messages saying this email doesn't exist and those types of things. So, and I think that's one point when we have our orientation is to say, listen, everything's going to be electronic communication, you know, those types of things. I need to make sure they understand, check your email frequently and those types of things. That way, we don't lose anybody, because I understand exactly what you're saying, and we don't want anybody to miss anything.
Okay, all right. And
One
then,
last question. Dr. Reynolds, you just sat there and told me that you were just really leaning on Miss Alexander. Where's the secondary education person and the elementary education director? I'm talking about directors now. Don't you supposed to lean on them too?
I do, and they have participated, and they have helped collaborate with this. They were two of the key people that helped create that parent contract as a group. We did that.
You know, we're a team here.
We are, absolutely.
And I want to make sure that they're on board with you and Miss Alexander, because it's not just the two of you
Right.
all, because if they are directors of the secondary, you got the elementary director.
Yes.
You all should be saying, we're all in this together, but when you leaned over there and told Miss Alexander, that's just one person. We got two other people hired in the district to spread the joy around.
Okay, absolutely. And they have been, Ms. Williams, they have definitely participated, contributed.
I know they've been coming up here, but you know, when you come together as a group, let us see. Because when you said, oh, I got Miss Alexander over here, well, no, it's one department. You need all four, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're the director. So thank you for the, no doubt, no doubt. I just want to see if you all together, that's all.
Do we have to get ADE approval on this?
So this is a great question. So we have gotten ADE approval.
Okay.
Our next step from here is Monday, we go before the state board. The state board will have to approve it, but we do have ADE. That was kind of the next step. So we're going to go, and if there's questions, and then we'll be able to come back to you on Thursday with any of that feedback, and then for final approval so we can move forward.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
so we're not voting tonight on.
Correct. This is just information only, and then next week
Good
it'll be
information.
action.
Wonderful. Have a good weekend.
Yes, thank you, ladies.
Tell your mom I said hi.
I will, thank you.
The next information item is property acquisition at 5600 MacArthur Drive, North Little Rock, and I would like to invite to the podium my colleague, Mr. Brown, the CFO, and our Chief Legal Counsel, which is Mr. Beckett is here because, and Mr. Jenkins is here as well, our real estate agent. If you recall, when we first spoke about the Amboy traffic, the board requested of me additional information. If we were going to pursue purchasing the lot at 5600, what are all the details to that? So what Mr. Brown has provided with Mr. Jenkins and Mr. Beckett is what would the potential cost be, and what would the potential contract look like, and what would be the process if you wanted to move forward with purchasing. That's why I asked Mr. Beckett here to make sure we got a legal opinion on the proper steps that we would want to take.
Oh, that's page 4. Page 1.
You must be reading my mind, Mr. Brown. I was going to ask you to do just that.
Zachers, we might need some help with.
Okay, so what we brought for you is information on the property that is for sale there at 5600 MacArthur Drive. It is the triangular piece of property that sits in front of Amboy Elementary School. So Auburn Drive is the one-way street between the property and the school district and the elementary school. So it is this corner lot here that is in question. So we were asked to bring some information on the purchase of that property. It's for sale, and there's been some traffic issues there, and there was some interest expressed for us to look into that and see if we could acquire that property. And so we're bringing to you the information we have gathered on the information. I have represents us. He is out. He's not the realtor selling the property. He is the realtor, as you all know, for a lot of during our construction phases. He is our representative that represents us. So he's here to answer questions about the property, and also Mr. Beckett's here to answer any of the legal questions that we have regarding the process in itself of purchasing property if that's the board's desire.
Madam President, I've got a couple questions. All right, the $95,000 cost, is that just what they have it listed at? Where did we arrive at that number?
They have it at 115,000, I do believe, or 114,000. So I was reached out, I guess, about a week or so ago, Mr. Brown, to represent the district in the purchase or acquisition of that property there. It's about 0.56 acres, which is roughly $3.90 a square foot. The building district, there has been some purchases in that area, back right across the street from the Family Dollar. Those were two parcels that were purchased there, which is just a little over, I think, 7.76 of an acre, or 0.76 of an acre, and that was 185,000. So that was $5.44. Now, just to the northwest, right here, this has been just purchased recently. This area right there, and they paid $90,000 for that, and that's roughly $3.44. Now, again, that building, from my end of it, realtors, I'm not looking at anything, it's really not even valued except for a tear down. So the highest and best use is going to be a high commercial, and it's only there to C4. So, you know, to correlate what we're back to on the price of the $95,000, that's about $3, and like I said, 90 cents a square foot. And where that's about $3.40, and the acquisition for the Family Dollar was $5.44.
So from a cost basis, it's in the range of
It's
what
in the
other
comparable
properties
range
are.
of whatever specific use is going to be.
Right.
Now, what happens if, let's say, the school district doesn't purchase it, and the entity that bought it, it can do it. C4 is a high range of commercial use there. I mean, it can be a wide range of storage or what have you.
Okay, all right, so I don't know if the people are here that would answer this question, but you know, we floated a lot of ideas at the last meeting, and this was something we said, well, let's just, let's say we were to acquire this property. What problems do we think we solve, and how do we do that, and what's the cost of doing that after we purchase the property? Do you follow what I'm saying? I mean,
Sure.
The issue is traffic.
Yes.
My understanding is it backs up on Auburn, as Ms. Huggins said, and then folks kind of hop across it there trying to get out of standing in line, which, you know, we see everywhere. Beyond that, what do we think this, how does this improve our situation?
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. That's obviously the first piece that we're trying to solve. The second piece is parking, is our understanding, which is there's a huge need at the school as well. Certainly one of the things that we could do, and I do agree Ms. Huggins has brought up a good point, one of the things that we could come back with is what a rendering of what that could look like, redesigned, number one, and number two, what would that cost be? You know, to tear down the building, resurface, curbing, all of that with a traffic flow that's going to be more conducive. We're also working with the state, and matter of fact, the city on some permits as it relates to some flashing lights. So that is still out there in play as well.
Where would those lights be? On MacArthur or on
Correct.
Auburn?
My understanding, they would be on MacArthur.
So it'd be the state that would have to do that, correct?
The state would have to issue the permit. The city
Okay.
would actually be the one installing it.
Okay, all right. So I'm just looking at that from a parking perspective. There are some lots around town, I think, that are bigger. Several of our elementary school parking lots are about the same size as that, and then the overflow goes onto the neighborhood streets. So is that situation exacerbated by the location close to MacArthur? Are folks able to park along Auburn or not? I mean,
The thing about it is that when it rains, for example, yards have gotten torn up, so the district has to go back and try to fix those.
because people run up in their yards? Okay.
When they park, because the street is so narrow, people are parking up, they're tearing up their grass, and it has been situations to where emergency vehicles could not get through. And I think it's 12 parking spaces that the school has, period. So that's for faculty, and that's.
Isn't there a lot in the back, though, for faculty, or
Yeah,
do they?
what I was gonna say is when they have like programs and school functions, they have run out of spaces.
Right.
So with that being said too, I think what was going there before was like a tire shop. So of course, that would have produced a noise pollution issue right in front of a school. And I think pre-K is on the first side and.
Pre-K and kindergarten on
Pre-K and
the
kindergarten
front side of the
is
building.
on the front side of the building, so that would have definitely been super noisy there, and not to mention, you don't know who is at the tire shop, and, you know, being that that's a one-way street, people have backed up, turned around, come back out. So, people have backed up in, you know, in yards and gotten, you know, stuck, and so it just poses it's a weird place with a weird problem that pretty much has to be solved.
That's all I got right now. Thanks.
Well, Madam Chair, well, Mr. Brown, you all gave us this report last month, month before last?
It was
Mr.
maybe,
Pennington was here?
that was in April or May.
April, it was a good report and it was a clearer understanding of why we were doing this. And, this evening, I guess, cause we were talking about the money, it got confusing. But it was an excellent report. They said it was one place that was blocked, they could move that. Don't you remember the conversation? And what do you recall? Let's say that before we say Mr. Allen here, because it was very clear to me why we needed to do what we were doing, as to do. And we agreed to it, basically, but we wanted to hear some cost effects. And then when you hear the community say there's too much money for that, but not necessarily, so if we got some money, it's not too much, okay? My attitude about this is, could we have that good report that we had? All of you all were here?
Yeah, it was, they did open up the gate, and then that still didn't alleviate the problem. But the majority of the community did want that particular property, since it is an eyesore in front of the school, did want that property purchased. And I presented a letter to Dr. Paluski. If you want to read it, that's fine, from our neighborhood association president. But, you know, that particular community has met with Dr. Paluski, and also, some more people from the city also, to try to talk about that situation. But they have already opened up the gate. That was the immediate concern that they were gonna do that night. And I remember Mr. Pennington was here that night, and, but they did open up the gate. It did help, but it didn't relieve it.
Now, we said it wasn't gonna solve the problem, but my understanding was when they knew we wanted to buy the property go bing. But then too, Mr. Allen would always know the property value, and we didn't want to, what do you call that, grandfather them out? What's that magic word?
Or overpay it anyway, but yes.
Right, you know, when there's
Right.
actual necessity. And so, Mr. Allen, in hearing the prior report and the previous report and what Mr. Brown has said, I think, Mr. Allen, that the question I was asking you, was the cost too much? You told us the square footage.
Right.
But I'm talking about where it's located. Is the property actually valuable, that valuable at the location that it's in? That's all.
To the school it is.
Yeah, thank you.
To the school, for sure, because it's gonna be a nuisance going down the road. And highest and best use down the road, it is a small track, but so are the others, a small track as well. It's just how you can collaborate. If I could pair one of those two together, then I have a larger track, like the, Family Dollar didn't, then it makes sense. And I'll pay a little bit more for that, because I'm looking for the traffic counts, I'm looking for the visibility and like that. But yeah, that's more valuable to the school district.
Okay, I guess I'm missing something because I don't see how we get a wider road, so I'm not sure how that improves traffic. I see where it can improve parking, but I'm not sure how it improves traffic.
Well, I mean, that would be something that'll be like an engineer type of situation, which is out of my scope, to try to actually plan what you do with it. But if you have parents parking and picking up children, or if you have parents, you know, I don't know, PTA meetings or whatever the case may be, then it has to be some place for them to park for that.
Well, I get the parking, I just don't see on this map a change in the traffic pattern. If that's all I'm inquiring, Ms. Williams said that last time, it was clear that it improved the traffic pattern, but I'm not seeing it, so I'm missing something.
Well, and I'll just jump into that. And I think what would be in our best interest is to do some drawings and to have some engineers to be able to take a look at a traffic study, so you and the public can see what would the new flow look like. How many more spaces are we adding to this? Fencing for security. I just think that's a good next step that we need to do, so everybody can see.
I'm certainly not against it at this point. I just had questions. I think the main question is, how are we going to improve that traffic flow? I agree, adding parking is always useful. The question is at what cost, and how are we going to be getting cars through there more quickly so that they don't back up on Auburn Drive? So that's
And
all
not to
I'm-
mention, it will allow, room for fencing to go up around the school or up around the area to kind of secure it a little bit more, because there have been issues. You know, the primary concern, of course, is student safety first, and making sure that they're protected and they have an environment to learn. So, you know, we have a transit area right across the street from there. So it kind of needs to be almost a second layer of security-wise to make sure that the children are, number one, protected in the school. There has been situations where transits have gotten to the school, and that's, you know, I know one time in the school. So you kind of have to think about that too.
Well, Madam Chair,
Yes.
Mr. Beckett is sitting out there, and he needs to say something for our money.
I think she allowed you 20 minutes, right? Max 20.
I'll take it.
Okay.
Okay, but Mr. Beckett, what's your thought?
Well, I have no, I was just consulting on the contract. The issues you're talking about now are outside of the scope of a legal opinion on the contract. The contract is fine and perfectly suitable for its purpose. It's on the Standard Arkansas Real Estate Commission form, and it's fine, assuming the board believes that it's, that it's an appropriate use of district resources.
And what is the appropriate way to do this? Does the board need to vote before the contract is engaged, or what is the appropriate way to?
It's my understanding the board is not going to vote tonight. This is informational. The board's going to come back next week and vote to authorize the superintendent to either vote to authorize or not to authorize the superintendent to enter into the offer and acceptance, the real estate contract itself.
Okay.
Which then sets out some timelines for surveys, title work, phase one environmental, and other things that are the seller's obligation.
Okay.
Well, Madam Chair, go ahead. So when you come back, Dr. Pelosi, and if the board agrees to buy the property, that's $95,000, we need to have a vision of a design or something, who Mr. Taggart always does that, whoever you get.
Yes, ma'am.
Would have,
Yes.
present something so we can see a total cost
Yes.
of what everything is, before we just say we can buy the property and don't do anything with it. But have everything in line so that the board can see it. I have no problems, and anybody, if it's safety of our kids, everybody ever been to Boone Park knows it's nowhere to park. You got this little dumpty building sitting right down there that you can't even get out. And it's not, it is no equity with the other properties around the other schools, that's what I like to say. And I would like to see that equity done without an overflow of extra costs. You know how to stay in the budget range. If this, they'll come back and tell us where the funds are coming from. Do that. Where the funds are coming from, some designs, the extra cost over $95,000 to make the parking lot. Did I mention anything, Mr. Beckett?
No, ma'am, you don't.
Okay, Ms. Dallas, I want to ask you one last
Yes, ma'am.
question now. We're not being bamboozled.
No, ma'am, I will tell you that, because public records, well, they bought it for 40, I think 40 or 45,000, again, about a year and a half ago, which is a good deal. But again, what he could do with it, it's in the, I won't say it's in the best interest, but highest and best use is going to be for the school district to have it, whatever they can acquire at whatever price. The sellers are going to absorb some of the fees up front regarding doing a phase one, which is extremely important on the property. Understanding there were two underground storage tanks that were removed. We had documentation on that, but I still want to make sure we have protection on that, so they'll pay for that. And also the survey and make sure we're buying exactly what square footage we say we are, not what's just stipulated in the tax records, since they can be wrong a lot of times.
Thank you. Madam Chair?
Normally, we'd probably read this in public comment.
What's that?
So this is a letter from the association. Would that be okay to read that, Mr. Beckett? Or is that something that would have to be read in public comment, that I'm reading it on behalf of that?
I think it's okay.
Okay. So I'll read that, which is to the North Little Rock School District and the board. I'm sending this letter in my absence, but as the president of the Amboy Neighborhood Association, Amboy would like to thank Ms. Angela Pearson West and our Zone 4 rep, Superintendent Paluski, Principal Pennington, Steve Baxter, the North Little Rock personnel, and Dan Scott for their quick response to the Amboy elementary traffic issue. Amboy would like to see the land in question purchased and work on a plan for parking and traffic flow. We would like to thank the board for considering not only the children's education, but their safety as well, and keeping the environment conducive to the learning at the same time, taking the concerns of the neighborhood and the immediate area in consideration. Sincerely, Michelle Holt, ANA President. Thank you, Ms. Holt, for that. So I kind of think of some next steps, and I'm not sure we'll be able to get all this done by next Thursday, but what I'm hearing the will of the board is that we'll go back, we'll get some drawings done, some traffic pattern rendering drawings, what that would look like. We'll get a cost, a total cost if we're going to purchase it for this. What would it cost to do the architectural design? How much would it cost to tear down the building? All of that kind of broken down for the public as well as the board. Which fund, which will probably come out of the building fund, and then let's get that together. Then we'll come back. And if you want to proceed, then we'll proceed with a vote that would allow me the opportunity to make an offer. If that offer is accepted, then we would come back another time and you would vote to accept that real estate transaction.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes.
I move that we adjourn.
Can I have a second?
A second?
Okay, all in favor?